Asia's economies have been relatively quiet so far this year. Growth is slower this year than it was last year, and Asia is feeling the effects of the slowdown in the Western world. As far as the stock markets are concerned, we've seen quite a choppy movement in stock markets, a very strong start to the year, followed by an understandable pullback on the back of pronouncements out of the US that maybe the easing policies would come to an end, and subsequently we've seen markets recover some of those losses. The great driver for growth is really coming from within the region itself. So as populations become richer, we're seeing increasing domestic demand. So it's quite a shift from what has traditionally driven Asia, which has been export growth and exports to the West. In this environment, companies are not having a terribly easy time, so we're seeing earnings growth for companies slowing. It is still growth, but we're talking about 8-9% earnings per share growth, down from the more traditional 10 to 15%. But companies are in great shape. Balance sheets are very strong. They can still invest in their businesses, which is really important. So everything is looking good for the longer term, but short term, not so rosy. Our trusts have been performing quite well, again moving to an extent in line with markets, but we've had some very strong performance out of some of them relative to their benchmarks and indices. Asian smaller companies in particular doing extremely well. We've not made any great changes to trusts. Within our Asian smaller companies investment trust, we had a pleasant takeover bid for one of our long-term holdings at a very rich price, Siam Macro, so we've exited that. In our larger company trusts, such as New Dawn and Dragon, we've added a new holding of a DBS, Development Bank of Singapore, one of Singapore's leading banks and one of the strongest banks in the world. The biggest unknown in the world is, of course, when will the central government policies of easing come to an end and when will government start to tighten again? That's the big issue affecting markets worldwide. More specifically on Asia, the key issues are in two of the larger economies. China, how fast is that slowing? It is slowing. What consequences will that have? And then whether Abe and Abenomics will work in Japan. And that's really important to see whether Japan can come out of the doldrums. Short term, the Asian economies are going to be fairly quiet. So we'll see growth of 4-5% as opposed to traditional growth of 6-7%. Longer term, Asia's economies will still grow at a decent clip and very impressive compared with other parts of the world.